Ryokugyu is here, and there, and even over here. He's a very slippery admiral, so much so that even light slips right off him, leaving Ryokugyu as nothing but a permanent silhouette. But we are going to unsilhouette him because I want to know things, because we may very well have just discovered his devil fruit. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and green is my favorite color, right behind blue, red, purple, sometimes yellow, but never orange. However, green is a rather infamous color of mystery within One Piece, and on this occasion it is being applied to a mighty bull. A green bull, or a Ryokugyu, is defined as an admiral that we have seen a grand total of like 3 times in manga panels, and even then the use of the word seen is very arguable. With that said, the information we have is more than enough. From his few appearances and a handful of spoken sentences, we can figure out not only what this man looks like, but also what his abilities are. And to assist me with this task, we have Alex D. Weeb, Evil Afro Chicken, and Captain Kirk with a K for Captain, which is a crime against English, so you stop that. But all 3 of which did the amazing thing of pressing the subscribe button for the Grand Line Review, which will result in consistent injections of One Piece culture being administered directly into your YouTube feed. And if you want to be our next subscriber of the day, then hit the button and please do say hi in the comments below if you are a new member of the Grand Fleet. Welcome. Alright, let's talk about cowmen. Ryokugyu is a fascinating chap because he's exceptionally laid back. I'd say he fills the void of laziness that Kuzan left behind, but honestly I think Ryokugyu takes this mellow lifestyle to an entirely new level, because at the very least Kuzan ate food and exercised on his sea bicycle, whereas Ryokugyu already has quite the notable quirk in that he does not eat. It was stated from the mouth of the bull himself that he has not eaten a single food in 3 whole years, and because he was drafted into the Marines during the time skip, that means that Ryokugyu has not eaten anything during his entire tenure as an admiral. This will be very important shortly, but first, we need to discuss Ryokugyu's sex life. Because he has stated that he would eat, but only if being fed by a beautiful lady woman, which means that Ryokugyu is probably not doing particularly well in the dating department. In fact, in the last 3 years, Ryokugyu has probably had just about as many successful dates as Jack the Drought has had successful fights, which is, of course, 0. Ryokugyu is quite good at the punching though, having beaten back Sabo and friends of Sabo at the Reverie, much of which likely has to do with his inevitable devil fruit ability. So I asked all of you what this fruit will be, and somewhere in here is the correct answer, and we are going to start with, since Kizaru is a Logia and Fujitora is a Paramecia, my guess is the green bull will be a Zoan, most likely a mythical Zoan. And there's definitely some potential in this idea. Personally, I would love to see a Zoan Admiral just because it's something we haven't done before. I mean, we kind of have. Sengoku is a mythical Zoan user and he was an Admiral, past tense, which also brings up the idea of a generational power shift. Sengoku's Admiral generation is represented by a Zoan fruit, the pre-time skip Admirals were all Logias, so it may very well stand to reason that our 3rd generation being Fujitora and Ryokugyu are both Paramecias. And I'm not particularly sold on any of the 3 classes, primarily because our dominant fruit concept could fit into each of them, and that concept is green in Japan represents nature and long life / immortality, etc. So some kind of plant Logia. We know you wanted plants, Liams. I don't know why I got pluralized there, but this is the predominant thought when it comes to green bull, and a lot of it does have to do with the whole factor of not eating, because the vast majority of plants do not eat food, especially human food like apples, steaks, and Hungry Jacks, which is just inferior McDonald's. I cannot make that clear enough. However, the big idea with plant powers is that Ryokugyu would be able to photosynthesize, gaining his nourishment from the sun, eating up all of that nom delicious light, thus remaining shrouded in darkness himself. And when it comes to plants, we have a disgusting amount of options available to us, mostly because One Piece has never really explored plant-based powers. The closest we have in canon is Robin, who essentially sprouts a series of meat plants all over the place, and in One Piece Film Z there was a character named Bins who had the Mossa Mossa no Mi, which allowed him to accelerate the growth of plants. Think of him as the Jewelry Bonnie of the plant world, just much more disappointing and of course much more not canon. But even then we've still not really seen anything that dives into the world of flora, which is odd, very odd, because we have devil fruits based on almost everything else. I mean, there's even a devil fruit based on butter for crab's sake. So surely there's a plant power out there somewhere, right? And let's say there was. What class would it be? Paramecia would be a pretty solid choice, a fruit that gives one the ability to generate and manipulate a type of plant. Then again, that could also be achieved with a mythical Zoan, like an Ent or Dryad style devil fruit that grants all of that Paramecia goodness in a much more fancy package. And fancy package is a smooth transition into the sponsor of today's video, is what I would say if if we had one. That was a missed opportunity. But we also can't leave out our snobby rich Logia cousins, because flora is natural enough to feasibly fit into the elemental Logia theming. Because if swamp is an elephant, wow, did I just say elephant? Because if swamp can be considered an element, then so can anything else that isn't man-made. And as for specifics, since plant was by far the most popular choice, we also had some more in-depth answers. I think Green Bull's fruit is the sap fruit, a Logia type devil fruit that allows the user to create, control, and become sap. It'd be a nice callback to that movie villain whose name I cannot pronounce or spell, who had a candy Logia fruit. That villain's name was Gaspade, and he did have a candy syrup Logia, which was a pretty terrifying fruit actually, because due to the nature of the syrup, Gaspade could manipulate the viscosity, which is something we don't often see from Logias. So he could not only melt himself, but he could also make himself hard, very hard. And the same thing could be true of a sap-based Logia, unless I'm mixing up tree sap with tree resin, which I might be. So let's quickly move on. You know something that's very related to plants? Fruit. So in a weird meta way, a plant-based devil fruit could literally be a fruit. Like say the plum fruit, which gives you all of the advantages of plums, including the ability to become a dry, withered prune if you stay out in the sun too long. With all of this said, I don't think we should put too much stock into the whole Ryokugyu not eating thing, because this is One Piece and setups like this have a roughly 50-50 chance of going in one of two directions. Either it's a subtle hint to the character's phenomenal power, or it's a setup for a really dumb gag. Like Magellan on the Crapper. That has a lot less to do with his devil fruit and much more to do with him being an utter bunglenut. And Ryokugyu could be in a similar situation. His lack of eating could be a weird personal quirk that makes very little sense and will just exist for us to point and laugh at. So what else is green? I'm thinking acid paratype. Acid dissolves rubber, so it would be a fun fight for Luffy. I feel like you and I have a very different definition of the word fun, but sure. I mean, it would definitely fit in a lot better with the previous Admiral generation of Logia fruits. An acid Logia sounds every bit as much of a nightmare to fight against as say magma would be. But while we're on the elemental train, choo-choo, I still find it bizarre the fire Logia was introduced extremely early, but the earth, air, and maybe water Logia are still completely MIA. So I would say earth. Yeah, so essentially Ryokugyu could be an earthbender, but better because he would also be the earth that he is bending. A self-bender, if you will. And this Grand Fleet member does bring up a good point though, because if whoever constructed the devil fruits had the ability to harness a raw natural element like fire or magma, then surely earth and wind would be a reasonable, perhaps even logical next step, or even a previous step. At this point, I just want to see what he actually looks like. Alright, this is what we've been waiting for. Brief devil fruit break now, because we are almost positive on Ryokugyu's design. Each of the 4 admirals so far has been essentially a caricature of a legacy Japanese actor. And a super massive actor from around the same era as the rest of them is Yoshio Harada. He did a lot of films alongside the other admirals, including one named Roningai, where he starred alongside Shintaro Katsu and Kunie Tanaka, being Fujitora and Kizaru respectively. But his aesthetic fits Ryokugyu near perfectly at the moment, particularly with his wavy, messy hair and the general sort of flippant vibe that he exudes. I'm not one to heavily invest into theories and ideas about, like the future of fictional pirates, but I would be shocked if Ryokugyu was not modeled after this guy. Although there is another option, because in the SBS of volume 73, a talented reader provided a rendering of Ryokugyu, and doesn't he look glorious? So look, we'll say that there's a 50-50 chance that Ryokugyu will be modeled after either Yoshio or this Ox King-esque sketch from a fan. Feel free to place your bets in the comments below. I think Green Bull's devil fruit ability is a Zoan of a green bull. Sometimes simplicity is the best answer. Not this time, but sometimes. A red bull. Is it bad that I actually like this idea better than being a green bull? It's such a plausibly stupid thing for Oda to do. To name a character and then subvert that expectation entirely, with someone angrily yelling something like, "Aren't you supposed to be green?" And then maybe Green Bull says something like, "I'm green at heart." That or Ryokugyu is colorblind, but nobody has the guts to tell him he's actually red. So there are definitely options here. I like the idea that he has no devil fruit. He's simply strong enough to become an admiral based on his strength alone. I think that would play nicely into his very nonchalant attitude that we've seen so far. That would admittedly be pretty damn cool, because at the moment Garp is the only admiral who has managed to make a name for himself with raw power. Everyone else relies pretty strongly on the old devil fruit crutch. At the same time, would it be a wasted opportunity? Cool or no cool, One Piece is often a wacky story where Oda gets to bring his craziest fantasies to life. So Ryokugyu just being a guy who hits things like really hard, is probably not a bet I would take, because this is Oda and he rarely passes up a chance to draw something new and fun. No DF, only sword. That comment brought to you by Zorro in disguise, I suppose. But really, this is kind of the perfect counter-argument to what I just said. It may be worth him not being a fruit user if he has a strong investment elsewhere, like being a world-class swordsman. Perhaps even someone who approaches Mihawk in terms of skill. That might be worth exploring because swordsmen are kind of neglected in favor of haki practitioners and fruit vendors, which is why it probably won't happen. Why do sword when you can have fruit and sword? Maybe even fruit sword like Kizaru that one time. He can change people's dominant hand. Whoa, that fiend. Actually, he's also emu. It's probably better not to mention emus to an Australian. Because fun fact, we actually declared war against emus and we lost. And when I say we, I of course mean Western Australia. My side had nothing to do with this crap. Every comment on here is saying plant something or other. Well, I'm going a different direction. What if Green Bull isn't a fruit user, but a dial master? Yeah, remember when dials were relevant? I'm still kind of bitter that Usopp didn't keep up with dial usage. He was such a perfect vehicle for them because they require very tactical implementation. So I have no idea why he just dumped them after the Luffy fight, especially when they proved so effective. What are we talking about though? Green cows. Green is associated with peas, hence his power is green pea. He can shoot green peas from any part of his body, and if you're hit by a green pea, you gotta pee. That's how you fall in One Piece. What? Alright. I think we're done here. So let's start again elsewhere with this next video because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.